Well, that makes a lot of sense, Menexia. Now, so far we've kind of focused on what we can do as R&D leaders to influence the business. But of course, our audience is more than just R&D folks. We have a lot of business leaders themselves out there. And what advice would you give to them? Because perhaps they're not taking full advantage and leveraging the power of their R&D folks. And what would you say to those folks in the audience who maybe can get more out of their R&D team or especially their R&D leaders?
The advice that comes to mind is to spend a little bit more time with R&D and understand what R&D does and how they can be leveraged as a multiplier. I find that sometimes R&D is being brought into the conversation a little bit later to either execute on a certain direction or solve a particular technical problem within a context that has already been decided. And I have found, and business leaders that follow that will attest to that, that when R&D is being brought into the conversation at the design phase of an initiative or of a proposition, then they bring a lot of value in guiding what is possible, what is not possible, what could be possible, shape the technical, through their technical lens, the direction, and couple that with the business and marketing expertise to really create the multiplier effect. And so then you unlock the full capacity of everybody in the team. And I feel that the advice is to spend more time and also try that. Give it a try. Look R&D and demand. I know that I'm using a strong word right now, but demand from some of the R&D leaders to show up differently and at different places within an initiative.
I think demand is a good word. I think often for some reason we're hesitant perhaps to make those kind of demands. Or we could call them requests if we feel more comfortable with that word. But I think the point is we not only have that, we're not only allowed to do that and the right to do that, we have an obligation to do that. Would you agree?
I totally agree. And what unites us is at the end of the day, having a successful product at the market and how and position it in the best possible way for the consumers. So I think when we look at it that way, we are not serving different parts. We're not serving different objectives, I should say. And being on the same page from the get-go, I feel that it makes a very big difference. And also how for the business leaders, I would say another additional thought is how do we ask questions? Or do we ask questions in terms, for example, when it comes to designing something? It could be more closed questions. What is the solution to X? Or it could be, how would you approach XYZ when it comes to solving a problem? And I think that can unleash the R&D creativity when is being put forward that way.
Hey, that's great. Hey, I want to put you on the spot for just a minute, Menexia. And if you feel comfortable, if you could share an example from your actual experience, it could be at Campbell's or more recently with Firmenich, where you've had, you can give an example of how you've been able to influence the business and perhaps some of the challenges that you had to overcome to do that and what the result was. I think it would be really nice to hear that actually in practice.
I would like to share a story from my Campbell's days, and that was when I was in Campbell Fresh, where being a new division, we were trying to figure out how to break through in the branded space for soup versus private label space. And it was one of the occasions that a member of the R&D team had a fantastic idea of how to bridge the space between a beverage and a soup. and create a line of soups that can be reinvigorating and on the same time being utilized in a different occasion than the traditional soups. He brought that idea. It was, of course, I encouraged it as part of the R&D process. Then we went a step further beyond the formulation, build some prototypes, then a step further, build some visual designs with some containers from the container store, and then put the whole thing together, in other words. And instead of talking to our business about the idea and spending a lot of time convincing, we showed them. And so we had it on a table. They were able to see it, to touch it, to imagine it, how it would look like on shelf. Came also with some good consumer understanding and competition understanding and what was happening on that place. And we had a conversation almost building the business case for this new item. They adopted it immediately on the spot. And then we end up launching it. So I feel that the story, what I've learned from that is that when we discuss, but we do not seem to make any headway, making some effort to present the idea and bringing it to life with all the accompanying facts and building the business case is a great way to create traction and action with the business teams.
You mentioned bringing the business case, not just making the product visceral, which it makes a lot of sense with actual prototypes so people could see it rather than just talk about it, but also bringing the business case, because I think sometimes we might feel that, well, that's the job of the finance team or the general manager, but there's no reason, if you have the passion, that you can't at least learn how to and put together a P&L or a business case that shows it's not just a great idea, we can actually make some money.
Absolutely, and might not be the final, and no one is going to say that R&D people all of a sudden are going to be the finance entity of the organization, but we need to know enough to act as entrepreneurs. And if we think about it, a lot of entrepreneurs are technical. They have technical roots, and they are perfectly capable of building the business cases and bring visibility to all aspects of a proposition. And at least at the beginning stages for R&D professionals, if they have the passion to do that and have a starting point, and then of course, then the creation is for everybody to shape it and form it, and also then be open once we have it out there and it gets traction, that it will be shaped and be changed. And that's okay, because then it will become probably or most possibly better, and be open to that. I think is a great trait for an R&D as individuals, but also as teams, to possess that type of mindset.